What is up, my friends? I'm tired. What is up, XFL Nation? Welcome to another edition of the OG XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, your alt football media guru, episode 192. And on this week's Tuesday show, because we were at the game last night, where you saw America's team beat the Roughnecks, and you saw your friend on the television. But I'll get into that later. On this week's show, we've got the score, stats, power rankings, press conferences, trades happening, all sorts of news. Plus, Thomas Schad from USA Today, he had kind of made a big splash with two articles from the USA Today talking with Dany Garcia and The Rock. He talked to them on Friday. So we get the inside scoop of, kind of his impression of talking to them and break down all the things they talked about. If you haven't heard what they talked about, Dany Garcia said they are working on season 2 of the XFL already. So we get into all of that and so much more. So the question is, my friends, how do you get involved with the show? Easy. Email podcast@XFL News Hub with your thoughts, record an MP3 or video, and leave it on your phone. Play it on next week's show. We've got calls. We'll play them later. You can leave a voicemail, 888-430-7692, extension 3. We appreciate that. Plus, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're on anywhere your podcast can podcast on the podcast. You can get us there. And then we are usually, except for this past week because we had a Monday night game, XFL Week in Review live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday and Thursday. We will be on the YouTubes again this Thursday. We have a game on Friday. Super excited about more XFL action for you. Also, a couple other notes before we get into today's show. What's up, everybody in the chat? We've got a lot of information to get to you and keeping you up to date, because that's what we do, is try to keep you up to date on everything that's going on in the XFL, so you don't have to do that. 2 things, 3 things, 4 things. So make sure you check out the Thursday show, because we hit the XFL ladder. That's right, the spread, over, under, and the other one. And I forget what it is right now. I'm freaking exhausted. Been crazy last couple days, especially today, trying to get everything going. Fantasy football, the XFL. I also have a day job, and kids and my wife and everything going on, and my dog, all of it. I haven't even seen my kids in a couple days because they've been so busy. So the spread, and then picking the game winner. We hit that. So your $5 bet got you $23. This week we bet the $23 to get yourself $100. That is the XFL ladder. Each week we take our winnings on the over/under, the spread, and the pick'em. The winner. We take those 3. Then you move on. We try to bet it each week. We hit it this week. Also, for the first time, so we're in week 6. This is the first time I hit the DFS also. We had a good DFS this week, daily fantasy. That's where you pick up the team. So we take care of all that betting stuff, the XFL ladder, all of that fun stuff takes place on the Thursday show with our picks, and we get you up to date on player news and injuries and depth charts and all that other good stuff. Also, so make sure, and if you like football, then like and subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell to get alerted when new content comes out, and let's get this to 100 likes. So smash the like button, because I'm giving you tons of information and tons of stuff to dissect. Also, that was that. So I did those 2 things. Guardians game. That's right. Yours truly will be at the Guardians game. I think it's against the Renegades, April 8th, which is mine and my daughter's birthdays. And but she's not going to be around. But we will be in Orlando at the Guardians game. So we might try to find a place before to hang out. I'm going to reach out to my boots on the ground there and see if there's something we can do. So I would love to meet you guys. If you're from the Orlando Guardians, you're Orlando Guardians fans, let's hang out before the game. If you message me, if there's a bar to go to before the game, message me, podcast@xflnewshub.com, and we'll do that. Also, we have booked a hotel, and we will see you all in San Antonio for the championship weekend. We will see what the XFL has planned, figure out what we're going to plan, but yours truly, my wife, and my posse are all coming to San Antonio to hang with you for the championship games. It is a lot of stuff is going on. So I'm trying to figure out, with kids and everything, but we will be at the game and we'll be able to hang out at least at a minimum before the game. But we're super excited to make our way to San Antonio on that. So those are the three things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the game scores this week. Then we're going to go into our interesting interview with Thomas Schad. He's got a lot of cool things to talk about with his interview with Dany Garcia and the Rock, really, including the whole little thing about the USFL, and then them taking a jab at him with the whole Hollywood thing. So that all of it's interesting. That's coming up. And then we get into the news. Luis Perez traded. Kyle Sloter was released. What? If he was talking trash during the game. I don't know what's happening. Plus, we've got the latest TV ratings, which are on the up and up, and so much more. Players of the we've got a ton of stuff. So without further ado, folks, my friends, let's just get into the week that was the XFL.
Get ready for the biggest XFL season yet with...
So the Seattle Sea Dragons hold on and beat the Orlando Guardians 26-19. The Sea Dragons are now 4-2, and Orlando is still not in the win column, 0-6 on the season. Let's go through some of the stats for this game. It was a lot closer. They had a chance at the end, but couldn't pull through, the Orlando Guardians, that is. But then that's the beauty about what the XFL is doing, is that these games kind of come down to the end. So Ben DiNucci, 18 of 35, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Not a very huge game from him by any stretch. Still gets the 2 touchdowns. Still threw that interception, though. Kind of turns over the ball. You're pretty much guaranteed to have a Ben DiNucci interception for each game. But he led the team in rushing. 6 carries for 43 yards. Darius Bradwell filled in for Ellison for 12 carries for 32 yards. Not much on the ground game. I mean, Orlando's defense looked like it came to play. On the offensive side, Blake Jackson, 6 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. Juwan Green, 5 catches for 50 yards, a touchdown on 8 targets. Jordan Vesey had 7 targets, but only 2 catches for 22 yards. And Ja'Cour Pearson, who we think is kind of like the MVP, could be an MVP candidate, only 4 catches, 18 yards on 7 targets. Damon Willis, 1 catch, 2 targets. Here's the number I want you to see. Josh Gordon, 2 targets. That's it. Josh Gordon, 2 targets. That is all. So I don't know what's going on with Josh Gordon. Hope everything is okay with him. We know he's had personal issues. I don't know if that, I haven't heard anything if that's what it is. But you can see, I don't think it's that they were just blanketing Josh Gordon. Jackson, Green, Vesey, and Pearson all had over 7 targets, while Josh Gordon just had 2 targets. On the other side of the ball, the Guardians, let's get to the Guardians. Here we go. Quentin Dormandy, 24 of 44, 243 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 5.5 average. I still think he's the guy. He's the quarterback for the Orlando Guardians for right now. On the ground, Devin Darrington, 7 carries, 82 yards. He had a 43-yard run with 2 touchdowns, though he had that costly kind of fumble towards the end of the game. Dormandy, 5 of 43. I was saying for Dormandy, he was faking a lot of the hand. He would give the handoff and then he would run on the outside. I was like, dude, just keep it and go. Keep it and go. Jermaine Martin, 10 carries, 37 yards. He hasn't really done much of anything for the Guardians during the season. Again, as a team, 162 rushing yards. That's really good. I mean, we think Seattle's defense is really good. Also, aside from their offense, kind of a well-balanced team. They were able to run the ball. That's kind of an interesting thing to keep an eye on as the season goes further. Cody Latimer, 5 catches for 59 yards on 7 targets. Charleston Rambo, 6 catches for 54 yards on 11 targets. And Daniel Williams, 5 catches for 46 yards on 8 targets. The rest are kind of scrambling. Andrew Jamil, of course, one of our guys that we like from Fan Control Football. He also had a catch for 10 yards. Just got to throw that in there. But yeah, Devin Darrington with the fumble. That was kind of hurt them towards the end of the game. So there you have it. There is the final score. Seattle Sea Dragons 26-19 over the Orlando Guardians, and Seattle is now 4-2 in the hunt for the playoffs. And Orlando Guardians at 0-6. We thought I think they're close. They look a lot better than they did in the beginning of the season. Will they win a game this season? My answer is yes, but we'll have to find out.
They play hard. Like I said, we practiced, we changed some things up, and tried to focus in on where we was having issues at and correct those issues. One thing we did make a few plays on defense. I think that always helps if you're able to not only stop them, but to create some turnovers. We had an opportunity to create a few more turnovers. Came up a little bit short. You can see that by the score. I think if we get the one early to pick in the end zone, that changes the game too.
Definitely was a very good effort, and came up as a result of the loss. What was your conversation you had right after they scored a touchdown at halftime with the ref?
Well, we missed a few calls. He was, he called us for a false start, and I really never heard that. He said the lineman moved his hand, and it was like, his hand? We trying to get something going here. And it just seemed like, this season just the ball has not bounced our way. Even though we got one bounce on the during fumble on the punt return, but besides that, it's like 60-1. -1 to 60. We're obviously not good enough not to come over all that stuff. So we got to go back to the drawing board and try to finish this thing strong. I wish I had a view. We hit him. It was on the shoulder pads. That's what we do. We don't. I don't want us to. The refs can hurt you, but you bail them out. Let's make our plays, and that's what I really want us to concentrate on. Make our plays. Let's stop crying and complaining and just do. And with me being the biggest culprit of crying and complaining, just do your job. And that was the focus today. Came up short. Well, not only that, but we switched the coverage up in the back. We disguised, we bailed, we played some man, we doubled some guys. Like I said, we threw everything at them because they are a pretty good team. We was hoping that would turn into make the quarterback read a little bit. He hurt us a little bit with his legs, but overall it was very good. Not great because obviously we didn't get the win, but we are heading in the right direction, and the young men need a lot of credit for the fight that they have. Quentin did a very good job. Again, we scored, what was the score? 19. That's our second highest output of the year. Made a few mistakes here and there. One of the big ones, obviously, getting a holding call when we was punching in on a throw by, and that's one thing I was telling the refs too. When you actually hold somebody, the linemen they actually hold and they fall on them. When you slap somebody on the shoulder pads and throw them by, that's when they go that way. It's all about angles, and I couldn't understand why would they call that. We're not getting that on the other side. You do one good thing, three bad things happen, and then.
In what was kind of a meh game at best, and please, whoever was bringing a gong or whatever it was, please ban that person from the stadium. But the St. Louis Battlehawks beat the Vegas Vipers 29-6, handled them. They were already up 17-0 at the half, and went on cruise control to take the victory in Vegas. So once again, please, whoever that person was, who was banging the gong or whatever it was during the game. I thought it was a DJ going. Then I was like, why are they playing the DJ music throughout the whole game? Then I thought it was the DJ. But still, why do you need to have a DJ? Like, is that going to make people come to the game? It's already Vegas. We already know Cashman Field. The field looks better. I mean, the players were sitting on seats that look like they bought from Costco. But hey, you guys wanted to play in Vegas and have fun with that. Anyway, but as for the game, it was kind of a meh game at that. Battlehawks handled business. A.J. McCarron was 23 of 29, 236 yards, 8.1 average, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's what you want to see from these guys. Brian Hill, once again, is the guy. 14 carries for 71 yards, no touchdowns, though Kareem Walker did have a touchdown. We haven't seen his name in a while. 22 carries, 106 yards, nice balanced offense, getting rushing on the ground, I should say. Over the air, Darius Shepard, 7 catches for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. Seems to be the guy. I remember it was Austin Prohl was the guy. It seems like Butler and Shepard are the guys for the Battlehawks offense, and they're looking good. George Campbell, 3 catches for 54 yards on 3 targets, and then Hakeem Butler, 5 catches for 36 yards. Not a huge day, but he also had 7 targets, and Austin Prohl had 3 targets as well. No fumbles for the team there. As far as the Vegas Vipers go, we saw Luis Perez, but he wasn't doing anything. I expect Brett Hundley to start next week. Luis Perez, 13 of 20 for 99 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, only a 5.0 average per pass, not that great. And then Brett Hundley, 9 of 18, 120 yards. He's a 6.7, but he threw a touchdown late in the game. So he could be, I would assume that would give Brett Hundley the start this week and see if he can get anything going on the ground. 43 yards rushing as a team, 6 carries, 19 yards for John Lovett, 5 carries for 15 yards for Rod Smith. Nothing really on the ground. Battlehawks defense looked good. I remember Vegas Vipers team, they look kind of good the last couple weeks, and they just did not look good this week. So is this because the Battlehawks are playing much better? We'll just kind of have to find out. We'll see as the season rolls on. John Lovett leading your receivers in targets with 7. He had 3 catches for 44 yards. Did have a touchdown. Jeff Badette, still the guy on the team, 4 catches for 34 yards on 7 targets. Martavis Bryant, we got a sighting. 3 catches for 30 yards on 5 targets, and then sprinkled out throughout the rest of the team. Jerome Allison, 6 targets. He only had 2 catches for 13 yards there. So not a very good-looking game for Vegas Vipers. Also, between that annoying fan in the stands with the gong or whatever, and also I love Rod Smith, but you got to stop worrying about and blaming the refs for your problems. That's a very fixed mindset thing. Fix your team. It is not the refs' fault that you're 1-5. It's the coaching, it's the player, personnel, it's everything. So stop worrying about what the refs do and being pissed off at the refs, and the refs is trying to take the game away from you. It's you. You're in charge. So it's you. So enough with the fixed mindset. Go at the growth mindset. You're a Hall of Famer. You should have a growth mindset, but stop blaming the refs. It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you. Like I jawing the refs. I don't know. That's just my take, and this is different because I don't know if this is a thing within the football world that happens all the time when we get access as fans to see this kind of stuff. And I kind of see it, and at first I thought it was kind of funny, and now I'm like, come on, Rod. Like your team 29-6 and you're worried about the refs. It's the players, it's the coaches. And they're trying to mix it up and get things going, but, we'll see. Vegas Vipers, I feel like, can be a good team in this league. This was just not a good showing at all. Let's hear from head coach Anthony Beck on this week's game against the Vipers.
Open it up for questions, okay?
No, it's a great win by our football team. All 3 phases showed up today, which is great. It's nice to go out there and control your kind of outcome every single quarter of the game. The guys did a great job. Offensively, we started off fast, kind of shot ourselves in the foot early, but we continued to push through adversity and really make some great plays. Offensive line gave this guy some protection today. He was able to carve up the defense a little bit, so it was good to see that. We ran the ball effectively. It was good balance, and we were able to get in the end zone. I think that's the biggest thing offensively. Every single week we get into the red zone, we have to score touchdowns, and we did that. From a defense perspective, Donnie did a great job calling it. The turnovers are great. Back on track again, getting the ball back. versus their offense. Just a heck of an effort really to start the game, basically pitching a shutout for 3 quarters. So I'm proud of those guys. Special teams, no errors. Donnie's made his kicks, and that's how you win a football game right there. So shout out to our players. You know, when you lose a game and you come back and bounce back and play the way you do it, it says a lot about this team and the makeup of them. They've done it twice now, and gives your, as a staff, it gives you guys a lot of confidence when your players come out and respond and have a great week of practice. So we're 4-2. We're in good shape. We control our destiny. That's what we want, and we'll prepare next week for another big matchup.
All right, anybody got a question? No question? Go ahead.
Brock here with Team NBS Media. Coach, on the first scoring drive of the game, you guys went for it on 4th and 2, and you guys called a pass play. What was the thinking behind that decision?
Well, I trust Bruce whatever he calls. I think when you're running the ball effectively and have a good passing game, you really trust your guys in those situations. I told him he had 2 plays to go there, so the way we kind of looked at it is keep the defense on their heels. I believe on the play before, did we run on the play before? Hard to remember on that one, but we trust our quarterback, we trust our line, and we trust our guys to get that completion and move the sticks. And that's a big part of the trust factor for our coaches and our players. When these guys, and I tell them to go for 4th down, I believe they're going to get it every time, and they're able to have success.
AJ, can you talk about the communication you and Bruce have, especially when you don't have a headset?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind, and it's just a great job by the entire offense, really kind of giving communication on what the play was, and then Bruce knowing he probably thought I was messing with him, wanting to call my own plays sometimes. So, but it was just a great job. Sometimes you got to go through chaos, adversity, and good teams fight through it, and are successful. So it was good to see.
Coach, offensively, you run a lot of plays on shotgun and pistol formations. I didn't see any plays where you guys went under center. Is there a reason for that offensive philosophy and will you change going forward?
Well, it's nice to have your quarterback really see the defense and set the tone, and we can go under center, as quick as we can. Pistol's great because, it doesn't tip off the defense as much, and we really do a lot of different things out of that. We can play action, fake, we can hand it off left, right. Again, it just keeps the defense on edge, so you never know. We may be under center every snap next week, so it's good to have variety. We have a lot of options in our offense the way we run it. Bruce does a great job of just implementing things that are successful against the teams we're playing against. And this week, that's what we that's how it was drawn up, and we took advantage of it.
So the San Antonio Brahmas come out with the win and a kind of crazy quarterback mixture thing that happened, but they did hit the under like we talked about. 15-9. The San Antonio Brahmas are now 2-4. Renegades 3-3. I posted on Twitter that this game would decide basically if San Antonio lost and Arlington won, then basically it's a lock for the Renegades at Houston for the South Division. But the fact that the Brahmas won the game kind of keeps them in the hunt. So this is not over yet, which I think is good for the league. Let's get right into some of the numbers here. We had Jawan Pass, 8 of 14, 57 yards and 4.1 average. But we did see Kurt Benkert. Now, granted, he only had 2 days of practice. He was 1 of 6, 2 yards and a pick. Not much from him. I probably would have stuck with Pass more during the game and not put in Benkert. But I bet you part of the reason is, he signed up to play and get as many game reps as he could. And I think he's going to be the guy going forward. We'll see if he has a full start for the rest of the season out. He's going to have a week of practice, but he was only just 1 for 6. Jawan Pass looked like he maybe could do some things. But again, the offense for the San Antonio Brahmas just couldn't get anything going. Jaquez Patrick is now the guy. He is the only running back with Kalen Ballage out. 15 carries, 82 yards, no touchdowns. Pass, Benkert, John Hillman all kind of did things there. For the passing game, Landon Akers, 2 catches for 24 yards on 5 targets. TJ Vasher got 1 catch for 22 yards on 7 targets. And then Patrick and Hillman got catches on the running backs. So the offense just really could not get anything going. When you got a quarterback that's only been with the team for 2 days, and then Juwan Pass has been there for all season. I mean, I probably would have let him had the run a lot more for this game, but I mean, this kind of you fire your offensive coordinator. Did it really matter? Is it the players? Is it the coordinator? And that's kind of the whole party here. So the Brahmas fire their offensive coordinator, and they're still basically the same. But Sinnott looked good. Then he got hurt. Cone has not been much of anything. He was out this week. So they were really thin at quarterback. When it comes to the Renegades, of course, were high on Drew Plitt. So he got the reps today, 10 of 16, 163 yards and 10.2 average, which was good, and a touchdown and an interception, a 47-yard bomb. Kyle Sloter, 6 of 13, 22 yards, 1.700 for touch and interceptions. Sloter was frustrated on the sidelines, stopped trying to run the ball. Even at one point, I believe Sal Cannella complained too that the play calling, our own Anthony Miller asked Coach Stoops if he's going to make a change at the offensive coordinator position. He said no. So they're just going to keep going with who they have. But again, you see this. Now you have a coordinator who's been there the whole time, not getting anything going. And the interesting thing, and I think what maybe the problem is with these when it comes to spring football, is these teams kind of wanted to do the run and and set up the pass kind of offenses. And I don't think you could do that in these leagues because you don't have the offensive line help that you need. That's why teams like Houston and teams like Seattle are playing well. Now, the DC Defenders are a little different because their quarterbacks all can run. And that's part of the game plan too. So I think any kind of traditional style of football, I don't know what's going on with the Renegades offense at this point, but they 25 carries, 79 yards. You had 29 passing attempts for 185 yards. So, I don't know what's going on there. Javonta Smith, 4 catches for 49 yards and 4 targets. Javonta Patton, 2 catches for 43 yards for 2. Brennan Arcondo, 3 catches for 26 and 5 targets. But really, it was the Luan Winningham. Did you see that catch? 1 catch for 16 yards and a touchdown, and it was a beaut. He also had 3 targets as well. Sal Cannella, 2 catches for 5 yards. I mean, just nothing going on 5 targets. Victor Bolden. There was a Victor Bolden sighting as well. Remember him, the USFL championship game MVP. He is with Arlington right now, and he had 1 target. But I think going forward, Drew Plitt take out that 47-yard touchdown with a fantastic catch. And then what does he have? 100, you know what I mean? His attempts and completions are decent. I still think Kyle Sloter is a great player. I wonder if he goes to a different team next year or he goes back to the USFL. This is not he's frustrated. Their whole offense is frustrated. So we'll see what happens. But according to Bob Stoops, they're not going to make any changes. But there you got the final 15-9 San Antonio Brahmas over the Renegades. But if anything, there is still movement. Could the Brahmas put something together with Kurt Benkert and make it to the playoffs in the XFL? This is an interesting, good storyline for the XFL going in to the next final half of the season.
Oh man, where do I start? First off, the players, a bunch of resilient dudes that we got in our locker room, man. Thursday, I swear I can't make this up. Starting quarterback goes down. Our center steps on his ankle. He's out. Literally, next play, we lost Balaj, our running back, with Achilles, tore his Achilles. I want to talk about an all-time low towards the end of practice. Was an all-time low. It was the first in my career ever in football have ever seen you losing a starting quarterback and you starting running back on back-to-back plays. So we made a trade for Kurt. He literally got in Thursday morning, did all the carded practice. Really didn't know much of what was going on. Paz came in. Jawan, I thought he did an awesome job. Going into the season, with him, my plans was really just giving him an opportunity to learn how to be a pro. I think in his career, he really never got the coaching nor, an opportunity. So I thought, sitting behind Jack and Reed was probably the best thing for him, and to really just go ahead and development, and really just develop him as a quarterback. Due to injuries, his opportunity came a lot sooner than expected. We tried to keep things simple for him, and I thought he held his own. First time we went out there, outside of doing the carded script for the look team, he went against our number one defense. So we went one-on-ones. He drove the ball down there and put us in position to score. So he kind of earned his stripes going against our defense and driving the ball the way he did on practice. So we did that on Friday. And I said, you know what, to do that, it's kind of hard because for our third quarterback, you don't get preseason games to really go out and show what you can do. So it was hard for me to really truly get an evaluation. But him going against our defense during 2-minute period, he drove us down there and put us in field goal range. We kicked the field goal, and we did that. So that was really my opportunity to really see what he can do in live competition. So I thought both quarterbacks, they went out there and did what they had to do. I really put this one on our defense. I told them, when you have circumstances like we went through with Thursday, you guys have to score a touchdown, find a way. And they gave me 2 turnovers. And something that I asked them this morning, just give me 2. When we get to the other side of the 50, we're in scoring territory, just think of it as automatic 3 points at least. So you got to protect the points. And we at least got 3, walk away with 3 points. Our kicker, John, had a baby reveal party yesterday. He's having a little girl, so I knew he's living at an all-time high, man. So he rose to the occasion, knocked down some key field goals for us. So it was a total team collaboration, man. Just a bunch of resilient guys considering what happened on Thursday. A lot of teams would just break and throw in the towel, when you lose your starting quarterback and running back on back-to-back plays. So.
Questions?
America's team, your DC Defenders, remain unbeaten, 6-0 at Audi Field. Big game Monday night, 7 p.m. Audi Field, ESPN, the whole deal, 26-37. Your DC Defenders remain unbeaten. The Roughnecks have lost 2 in a row. So for the Roughnecks, as far as passing goes, Brandon Silvers, 10 of 17, 111 yards and an interception. I don't know if he got benched, but he just wasn't playing well. If you remember, we were talking on our podcast with Evan Wilsmore and Mike Mitchell, Anthony Miller, Pat Ruffino a couple of weeks back, talking about Brandon Silvers. Some of these guys are just trying to play for an NFL contract or get NFL looks. So they kind of went now with Cole McDonald. He was 8 of 11 for 194 yards and a touchdown. The offense looked really good under him. They had a big play for 85 yards. McDonald also led them on the ground, 6 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown. Max Borghi, again, a guy that you always want to put in your lineup, 11 carries for 25 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you were watching the game when Max Borghi scored his touchdown in the north side where the beer sneak is, I was on ESPN. You saw me on television. So, yeah. Deontay Burnett, 4 catches for 122 yards. Of course, it was that 85-yard bomb. He had 6 targets and 1 touchdown. Missing Javante Kirkland hurts this team. Ever since he got hurt, they have not looked the same. Drell Havers, 5 catches for 60 yards on 5 targets, and Cedric Byrd, 4 catches for 37 and 6 targets there. So that's with the offensive side of things for the Houston Roughnecks. For the DC Defenders, America's team, it's kind of what we usually expect, but this time they're passing the ball. Jordan Ta'amu, 19 of 31, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 7.9 average, a 36-yard long one. De'Aaron King, not really used much, but Ta'amu was Running the offense, Abram Smith, 19 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Raquel Armstead came back after being injured. He had 8 carries for 26 yards. So it was Tamu throwing the ball, Abram Smith running the ball. Lucky Jackson is the guy. If you didn't know this, in the DC Defenders offense, 5 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Josh Hammond almost had a couple. I had one that just was right on his fingertips. 5 catches, 65 yards on 8 targets as well. So it's Lucky Jackson, Josh Hammond, Abram Smith, and Jordan Tamu is kind of the offense there. Ethan Wolf come back from injury, 3 catches, 21 yards on 3 targets there. Chris Blair had 5 targets, but only 1 catch for 2 yards. Jazz Ferguson, you remember him from the XFL days in 2020. He was in there, got a target there. I'm curious to see how he makes his way into this mix of players, because adding him would be, adds more dynamic to their offense. But DC Defenders are 3-0. And so we hear from the losing coach 2 in a row, Cole McDonald, and Roughnecks head coach Wade Phillips.
All right, it wasn't what we wanted, but I thought our team fought back. Cole came in and obviously did a great job. Had 194 yards passing in the fourth quarter. Set the all-time record for the longest pass in XFL history. So I thought our guys fought back. We had a lot of penalties. They had 8 first downs by penalty. So we've got to clean that up. Defensively, I'm talking about. So it was a hard-fought game. I thought at halftime, we were right in there. We got way behind, but then we fought back.
Coach, did you feel the officiating was fair?
Was what?
Was fair?
Well, when you when you get 8 first downs against you, you worry about it. But I do think they try to do the best job they can do, and I applaud them for that. Sometimes it didn't work out in our favor, and we'll just look at it and see. And that's what we got a head of officials for, to see. They grade those guys just like we grade our guys every week. We didn't do our job and win the game. That's the most important thing. So it's not the officiating.
Okay.
Coach, how do you keep emotions in check or get them back in check during a game when on both sides it seemed like a little bit of composure may have been lost at some points?
Well, I thought we did that, and that's part of it. I mean, they've already had a big deal already with Seattle, so we went into the game knowing that, that those things could happen, and we didn't want to be a part of it. So I thought we made it through the game that way. There's a lot of talking, but, and we had a player kicked out of the game, so I'm not proud of that either.
Coach, 2 for you. First, is Cole your new QB1?
Well, Cole had an outstanding game. He was ready to play. That's what we've asked him all year, to come in and play. Now, he's played throughout the year. It's not like he hadn't played at all. We have, but I thought he did a tremendous job. I don't think you can take anything away from that. We scored time after time after time, and that's the name of the game. And the quarterback certainly a key to that. So I think they did a great job.
And then first for Cole, and then you second, Coach. How tough is it to play in such of a passionate environment here like Washington, D.C. with these fans?
Is that for me or him?
Both of y'all, like they had Cole first.
I think it's very tough. To have the crowd here, electric, definitely puts emotions very high. And as a team, we feed off of it. And sometimes it gets out of hand, get some penalties thrown. So we got to just be more focused, take that kind of sporadic energy, that kind of pent-up aggression, whether it's a bad call, bad play, and just focus on the next play, because we can't control that,
And that for you, Coach?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, they have a good crowd. We have a good home crowd when we play. We're going to play back at home a couple more games, and we'll be excited to play at home. And then hopefully, if we win our division, we play at home. So that's what we want to try to do. That's our goal.
Coach, you had a quarterback switch of your own, but you played a team that is known to switch quarterbacks. How did you guys prepare? And then didn't see that much of a switch. How did you adjust your game plan to not seeing Derek King out there?
Well, they didn't play the other quarterback very much.
Right.
So, most of the time he played on the goal line, but he didn't play on the goal line this week. So I thought we played the running game really well. They threw the ball better against us than I thought they would. So my hat's off to them. They did a good job of passing the ball. They only had 20 yards rushing at the half. We felt like if we got ahead of them, which we did early, they would have a tough time without being able to run the ball. But they did a good job in their passing game.
How much do you guys think you missed Sean Davis?
Well, I mean, I always miss players that are good players, but we'll get him back, and we've got to go to the next game. We lost this one, but we're still in a fight for the division. We're still in first place in our division. We want to keep working towards that goal, which is our first thing is to make the playoffs. Second goal is to win your division, and then the third goal is to win the playoff game at home and then play for the championship.
All right, we're here with Thomas Schad from USA Today. Tom, appreciate you taking the time to talk about your XFL articles that you had this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's just get right into it. Take us behind the scenes of your interview with the Rock and Dany Garcia.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting, wide-ranging conversation. Basically the idea was we're at the midway point of the season, kind of take stock, and I think that's what we use for a headline, is take stock of where everything stands. And we touched on a lot of different things. This was my first opportunity to speak with both of them, kind of about some of the reasons that they bought into the league and kind of their longer term strategy behind everything, in addition to kind of some of the more nuts and bolts stuff about this season. So it was really interesting. We covered a lot of ground. It was about 30 minutes, but I thought it was a really productive chat.
Now, did you talk to them on Friday? This was kind of like over a Zoom kind of thing?
Yeah, spoke with them on Friday.
So I guess the first question is, your article touched on that there's going to be a season 2 in the XFL. What was kind of your sense of how things were going between the two of them with the league this year?
Yeah, so I think they, I kind of pushed a little bit, I guess, on that question of whether there would for sure be a season next year. All the signs were pointing to yes, obviously. Their television rights deal with Disney was for multiple years. Obviously, they took whatever it was, 2.5 years to get the league back up and running.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things kind of pointed to more of a longer term play, which is basically what they said. And I thought the interesting thing was kind of securing dates. The fact that Dany Garcia said that they're securing dates for the combine, they're securing dates for showcases and whatnot, for 2024. That spoke to the fact that they're already actively making plans for next year.
So was this an XFL combine or just being part of the NFL combine world stuff?
No. I interpreted it. I did not ask a follow up on that point. I interpreted it as like an XFL combine showcase sort of situation to bring new players into the league.
So that they're thinking that there's a separate thing. There's the showcases is one kind of event, and then they're doing some kind of combine, because that would be kind of new in this.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I know Dany Garcia mentioned that and kind of the litany of things that they're starting to plan for and secure dates for. But I don't know if those are kind of one and the same or if that's a separate new thing.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. We've been covering the XFL since 2018, so we're super nerds when it comes to all. So the littlest things, when you cover a league that's only played really 10 games, 11 games, anything they say is kind of like, wait, what?
Right.
So was there any other things that you guys talked about that kind of didn't make the articles?
My opening question was about kind of highs and lows of the season, highlights, low points. I think I termed it rose and the thorn, which I always prefer. You come home after a long day at work and you say, hey, honey, how was your day? What was the rose? What was the thorn? Or that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I framed it to them. And I thought the answers and kind of what they said were pretty much what you would expect. They said the high point was the atmosphere. Dwayne Johnson specifically mentioned watching AJ McCarron to come from behind victory and have his kids come out onto the field, and him getting emotional, talking about this is why he wanted to come to the XFL to actually play and not just sit on the sidelines in the NFL. And to Johnson, that kind of was a culmination or like a representation of why they wanted to create the league. And then low points, they talked about injuries and guys getting cut and whatnot. Pretty much everything else I tried to fit in there in one way or another, at least the broad themes that we discussed in the conversation.
He did mention something in your article about the DC energy in the crowd and Audi Field also.
Yeah, he was very complimentary of the crowd. He talked about being there for the opening weekend, and it being very, very electric. And he did compare it to some of the college crowds from his playing days, which I thought was interesting. And we kind of went back and forth about, part of it is numbers, and part of the atmosphere piece is just the rowdiness or the atmosphere of the fans who are there. And so he's very complimentary of DC in that way.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a season ticket holder, so we go to all the games. We just went to the game last night, even with 12,000 or even 11,000, whatever it was. I mean, the place is electric. Did they talk anything about the beer snake? I mean, DC loves its beer snake. Did they mention anything about that?
I actually asked specifically about the beer snake.
Yeah,
and that was kind of what sparked that conversation about the atmosphere there. But they were very, very impressed. And I think the one piece I did include in the article with Dany Garcia saying she's very impressed by the beer snake tradition there.
Oh, good. Yeah, because there was concern that they might not be able to, like, fans wouldn't be able to do it because they were breaking it up the first game. And I'm glad that they reached out and kind of rectified that situation. Even though the fans do boo every time they put the beer snake rules up, don't throw your cups in anything. But I think that's now part of the tradition too, is to boo when they talk about rules. Sure. So any other hints about season 2 that they kind of touched on?
No, and in fairness, I didn't go too far down the path of asking specifics. I mean, there was just so many things that I wanted to touch on. The relationship with the NFL, the relationship with the USFL. We had a separate story come out today where I asked about an ad that the USFL has been running that appears to take a little jab at Dwayne Johnson and kind of the XFL in that way. So there was a lot of ground to cover. It didn't get too deep into the weeds for year 2 beyond just that they're confident that it's going to happen.
So let's talk about the USFL piece, because I hear from both sides of the leagues and they're like, oh, we don't really pay attention to each other. But meanwhile, we know you guys do. When you brought up the USFL, and especially that, I was surprised that the USFL actually went out and kind of said Hollywood. I mean, what else are you talking about but Dwayne Johnson? But so what was your reaction their reaction when you kind of brought up the USFL, and particularly that promo?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that's in the article that we published this morning on usatoday.com, just that they found it funny. And basically the point they made is that, the USFL, is in part owned by Fox, which, and is broadcast on NBC, and, they have connections to Hollywood and to movies. And, the XFL obviously has connections with Johnson and Dany Garcia, and, they're broadcast on Disney. And basically, I think they just we're saying that it's funny because they're all kind of in the same area. They're all in this entertainment business, so to speak. But I did think it was interesting. I mean, you do get the sense that they don't want to, they're not trying to like start beef with one another, I guess is how I would put it. But they're definitely competitors. And I think there's a recognition that, like, you have this spring football market that for years, has struggled to sustain even one league, successfully. And now you have 2 of them. And so I do think that's interesting. And I think it's interesting how they answer the question, which again is in the article, by kind of trying to draw comparisons between how the XFL has done things and how the USFL has done things. And they didn't explicitly say, we're doing X and the USFL is doing Y, but in touting the fact that they play home games in each team's market at a stadium there, and that their schedule is designed more closely and tailored more closely to the NFL schedule, giving players a better chance theoretically to latch on with teams after the season. I think by drawing some of those parallels, they were kind of tacitly acknowledging that yes, we are using the USFL as a measuring stick. We're competitors. We're comparing one another, all that sort of stuff. So I do think that's interesting. I think that's moving forward going to be one of the really interesting things, is just to see, especially for the couple of weeks where the two overlap, you know, what kind of TV viewership each side is drawing, whether one side is kind of drowning out interest in the other, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you said in your article that there's 7 times where there'll be overlap, and including, you even said like 30 minutes within each other.
Yeah, and there are some. I think it's April 16th, which is the USFL's open weekend. They have, I think, a game that kicks off at noon Eastern, and the XFL has a game that kicks off at noon Eastern on a different channel. So obviously, you know, if you have one on, say, FX and one on ABC or you know, Fox over the air, that's gonna, you know, kind of dictate who gets more viewers. But I do think it's interesting that right around the corner, we're gonna have them very much directly competing with one another for eyeballs.
Yeah, they cringe when I bring up the term the spring football wars, because Dwayne Johnson was in the WWE and they competed with WCW, and they always cringe. But I mean, that's the sense in the alt football space, is that that's what everybody's kind of calling it. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting time too. So as a mainstream sports guy, how is XFL perceived in the outside world? I mean, we're in the kind of what we call the alt football world, where we, you know, it's CFL, XFL, USFL. But how is the XFL being perceived in your circles?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's really interesting, and it's, you know, you see some parallels to other spring leagues, you know, be it the AAF back in 2019, I think it was, or the most recent iteration of the XFL in 2020. I mean, I think generally sports fans view spring football as a little bit of a novelty. I think there's a lot of, and we've seen it with the XFL this year, there's a lot of interest in the first week. There's a lot of interest in the rules and what the broadcasts are going to be like. And I think the challenge is always sustaining that over an extended period of time. This year, I think, has been particularly challenging because you're trying to go toe to toe with March Madness, right? And so I think, you know, Joe sports fan, you know, our average reader per se is going to be more interested in Farley Dickinson, you know, beating Purdue than, you know, in an XFL game that was played the same weekend. So I think that is going to be the long-term challenge for the XFL, is kind of breaking through there, and for the USFL, breaking through there and kind of getting to a point where it becomes more appointment viewing or more attractive viewing for the casual fan, that it can go head to head with things like March Madness, college basketball, spring training baseball, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so have you watched any of the games? I mean, are you following the league? Did you follow the league in 2020, or did you follow the USFL at all?
I followed the 2020 XFL probably most closely, I'd say, and part of that was just because I was a little bit more involved in coverage and the coverage decisions we were making at the time. Covered a couple games, it was a little bit more involved with both the USFL and this version of the XFL. I've tuned in and kind of checked it out, but I would say that I've very much been kind of your Joe sports fan in that way. You know, I'm not watching every game and breaking down film and that sort of stuff. I think the most interesting thing to me, and again, maybe this is a Joe sports fan thing, is just kind of the long-term viability and the overall trajectory of the league, rather than, you know, who wins or loses an individual game, that sort of thing.
So what's your take? What do you think, you know, the outcome is in the next 5 years for these leagues? Do you think they merge, one kind of take it? Do you think they both can sustain for 10 years going head to head with each other?
Yeah, I mean, that's the multi-million-dollar question, right? I mean, I do think that you're going to have a hard time sustaining both leagues over an extended period of time. Whether it's a merger or whether it's one, you know, one league going belly up, so to speak. I think it's going to be hard, you know, for both to survive 5-10 years or what have you. What happens beyond that, it's really hard to say. I mean, I think the interesting thing in all this is the NFL is just so dominant, and it's so dominant not even during the season, but, you know, almost in an equal way outside of the season. You know, you have lots of interest in, you know, what's happening at the NFL owners meetings, and, you know, there's news within the hour of, you know, they're going to let guys wear the number 0 this year, you know, and there's lots of stories and interest, and fans are curious about stuff like that. And I think it's so hard to break through that or compete with that. And really, I think, the long-term answer is going to be in the form of individual players, essentially. You need a star attraction. You need somebody to start going crazy, somebody to have a crazy personal story, some player that becomes kind of appointment viewing, and that can kind of help carry the league into more, the Joe fans kind of, realm of awareness, and make them want to tune in. And I don't know specifically how you get there or when you get there, but I think that's going to be key moving forward.
Do you, based on like USA Today's traffic, I mean, if you guys do an article about the NFL Combine or something really low key on the NFL side of things, I mean, how would you compare it with like a XFL article? I mean, are you talking like, the minuscule, like something like this number thing? You guys do an article on that vein. Is that like 10 times the amount of traffic to that one article versus the XFL? I mean, is it really super far apart, or is there still some interest in the XFL, or is it just the NFL is the juggernaut?
It's a fair question. It's really hard to give any sort of an accurate answer, just because the types of stories that we're writing about both are completely different. The volume of stories that we write about both are completely different.
True.
So it's really hard to compare them. But I mean, I can tell you, not just from our traffic, just generally, the interest in the NFL is insane, and the number of people who tune in to watch every minute of the NFL scouting combine, I think speaks to that. Or who are writing takes about Lamar Jackson's contract situation every other day. I mean, I think there's stuff like that just is on a different level, and it's not even relative to the XFL. It's relative to all sports. I think globally, unless you get into European soccer transfer window stuff, I mean, I don't think there's a league that draws more attention, more eyeballs, year round than the NFL does.
I mean, one of the things Oliver Luck had said was that if they could just get 20% of the audience for the NFL towards the XFL, like, they would be one of the biggest entities out there. So final question for you: if the DC Defenders have a home playoff game, would you go to the game and participate in the beer cup? Would you drink a beer and then pass it along? Important question.
Fair question. Unclear. I mean, the cop-out answer is, I would say, I don't go to tons of sporting events that I'm not covering these days, which is the sad reality of being a sports writer. So I guess in that way, I would say probably not. But I am a big fan of Audi Field.
It is a beautiful stadium.
Several things there, and yeah, it's a beautiful. I mean, not a bad seat in the house. And there's been a really good atmosphere every time I've been there for all sorts of different events. So
yeah. Cool. All right, Thomas, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us and talk about your articles, and maybe we'll catch up at the end of the season, kind of get your take on how the XFL performed for their 2023 season. So appreciate the time.
Sure thing. Yeah, thank you.
Get ready for the biggest XFL season yet with runthesims.com, your ultimate toolkit for XFL DFS and prop betting. With DraftKings offering XFL contests with huge prize pools, you want to have the best tools and player projections at your fingertips. And Run the Sims delivers with their lineup optimizer, showdown simulator, and expert pick'em tools for prize picks and underdog. So here's the deal. Use code NEWSHUB for 10% off a monthly or weekly spring football subscription and get access to accurate projections to help you make informed decisions and make that money. That's runthesims.com. Use the promo code NEWSHUB for 10% off. So if you followed spring football and in the past, you know the information edge can be massive. So if you want to win big, subscribe to runthesims.com and use the promo code NEWSHUB today to save 10% off.
So the XFL is planning to come back for the 2024 season. So the XFL co-owners Dany Garcia, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson recently talked with USA Today about the current status of the XFL, how the owners think the season is going, and if there will be a season 2. Garcia talks about the current state of the XFL's TV ratings. Basically, ownership is pleased with the results and things are going according to plans. Quote, "We have been very much in the pocket of understanding of where our ratings would be," Garcia said. "We understood the challenges that would happen all the way through week 5. And as we get into week 6 and the latter half of the schedule, we knew where it would open up. So we're really pleased, really pleased with the execution." So there you have it. The XFL is pleased with what's going on when it comes to ratings, despite all the naysayers talking all sorts of you-know-what. Also, the question for many spring league football fans as to whether or not there will be another season. It's hard for fans to get 100% behind a league when the AAF and the XFL closed their doors in the past. Garcia said the XFL is already planning a season 2. Quote, "This will come out later as far as these dates are, but we have our showcases. We have our future combine, which is completely different. I want to point out it's completely different. We are planning our dates," said Garcia, the first female owner of a major sports league. Absolutely, there will be a 2024 XFL football season. Tom Schad had the report on USA Today. There's a lot of other details in this stuff. Johnson also talks about how the XFL is a true passion project for both of them and how they are in it for the long term. Quote, "This isn't a one and done," Johnson said. "This isn't let's expand the portfolio, let's make a little money, and let's get out of the game. This is a true passion project that has dated back to when we were kids coming out of the University of Miami, the U." They talk about their relationship with the NFL, the impact of XFL rules in the NFL, and their partnership with the league. But then The Rock, towards the end, gives a little shout out to all of the season 1 fans. He says, Johnson said that he understands why people might be hesitant or cynical about diving headfirst into XFL fandom, given that 2 of the past 3 attempts at spring football have come crashing down after less than a full season. Of course, he's talking about the AAF and the XFL. One was financial, one was you-know-what. The USFL, of course, will return for its second season in April 15th, 16th weekend. But he also credited those who have come out to games, calling it, quote, "one of the coolest things I've experienced in sport." He said this, "It's one thing when we all go to a game and we go to see our favorite players and their stars and the world knows who they are," Johnson said. "It's another thing when it's just for the love of the game and the love and pride of the city and the respect you have for these players who are just working their butts off trying to make it," close quote. So clearly, he was talking about, areas like St. Louis, and he was talking about D.C., and they were talking in the article, they talk about the beer snake and all sorts of stuff. So you could see that basically everything is going according to plan, and the league feels good about it. So XFL fans can take a little sigh of relief, despite all the chatter about attendance and TV ratings. They will be back for a season 2 in the XFL. Now, fans, players, coaches, and staff can be thankful for the success of any football league. We all need to be thankful, whether it's USFL, CFL, XFL, fan control football, indoor football league. We want to root for these leagues to succeed. We all want them to succeed. Those who don't, and I've said this in the past, only do this for selfish reasons. Either they want their league to be the only one there, or they just want to be like, hey, I told you so, I was right. Not thinking and not caring about the impact that it has on fans, players, coaches, staff, people who work near the stadiums. I mean, the bars that are near the stadiums, like the economic impact of football is huge. And when anybody tries to talk these leagues down and try to help, basically want them to fail, they're just tools, is all I could say. As selfish tools. And it's more about them than it is about these leagues. So this is very good news for XFL fans. I certainly have a sigh of relief to hear that the XFL will be back in 2024. This season, you just don't know what's going behind closed doors, whether the league is happy with the results. We've heard from ESPN first that they were, this is according to plan, and then we've also heard now from Dany and The Rock. Our sources within the league tell us that they don't really care much about attendance and ratings in season 1. And, anything is great at this point. They're just trying to get through season 1 to get to season 2. So personally, I think season 2 will be a lot bigger than season 1 as they have a whole year of all the staff, everybody kind of building up. And that's why it seems like that's why things were planned the way they were, where everybody came on board right before the season started. And all of these things was kind of last minute because I really think that they were like, hey, let's just get through this first season, figure out the bumps and kind of set the bar at a certain level. And then we can go for it for season 2 and really, season ticket package, corporate sponsors, the whole deal. So XFL fans should feel pretty good about the news that just came out today. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, co-owner of the XFL, talks a little bit about this USFL jab, if you didn't see. So USA Today's Tom Schad talked with XFL co-owner Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Dany Garcia about the USFL, its impact on the XFL, and their Hollywood quote-unquote jab during a recent promo. The slight jab amused Johnson. He also knows something about TV wars when the WWE competed with WCW during the Monday Night Wars in the 90s. That was the Monday Night Wars era in the 90s. So let's take a listen.
This is for the real ones, the fans that live for this. This is the USFL, reborn from the OGs. This isn't some Hollywood knockoff. This is Dragons, USDA primetime football. Just ask these guys.
You better recognize the real.
Accept no substitutes.
So there you have it. So Johnson said, quote, "We're all in the entertainment and all connected to Hollywood. So I thought that ad, we got a big laugh out of that ad," he said in an interview on Friday. Also, it's much easier to talk trash when you're hiding behind the corporate walls and a computer. We're very forward-facing. We're not hard to find. Close quote. Thought that was a little interesting. DJ knows a little something about a little talking trash, especially when it comes to these kind of things, So I just thought that was kind of funny. He says that the XFL is happy with their league's direction and committed to the fans in their markets. Quote, I think that this is one of our pillars and anchors to go and always take care of the fans, go to the city and take care of the fans. Johnson said, we're very happy with the decisions that we've made. We're very happy that we go to every market and we are committed to that market long term. We commit to those fans. We commit to the city. Also, Dany Garcia talks about how the XFL timeframe is good for their league and players, and also leaves a nice little thing at the end for the USFL. She says, quote, we're going to continue to execute our playbook. I love where we're at. I love our slot, which she's talking about the time of year. I love our decision to be in a specific window that advances where our athletes can go afterwards as compared to much later in the season, which is really challenging. So I think we absolutely wish them the best, and I think them, of course, is the USFL she's talking about. So XFL just finished their week 6 of the season, something the XFL 2.0 era could not do, even though it wasn't their fault. Global pandemic, we all know that. Their season ends May 13th in San Antonio for the big championship game. The USFL kicks off on April 15th. So one thing to keep in mind is that both of these leagues will cross paths 7 times during that time period once the USFL kicks off in April 15th. Then the XFL will actually have a bye week before their championship game, so then the USFL will be free run that weekend. So both leagues say they wish each other well, which is true, but they're kind of focused on their own thing. But like it or not, all football fans have dubbed it the Spring Football Wars, so you're just going to have to stay tuned for that. Ultimately, though, the success for both the XFL and USFL, remember, is good for everyone. All football fans should be rooting for both leagues, not one over the other. Whether they can compete in the same space long term, like in the next 5 years, is up for debate. But we are definitely excited for the XFL and USFL season. 2 business models. We've got more football to bet on, more football to do fantasy football, more opportunities for players. There'll be stars in the XFL. There'll be stars in the USFL. It's just good for football all around. Whether or not how if they both last for the next couple of years, or they merge at some point. Who knows what the deal is there? But it's just it's good for us for now, and I think it's good for the players, coaches, and staffs, everybody involved with these leagues. So keep that in mind, and don't be a fanboy, and don't be a troll. So this is good for everyone. But there's a little, this was a little bit of a little skirmish there, the first one. Who did the first shot or whatever, but the spring football wars is certainly on. The XFL has its Week 6 TV ratings, and they rebound with the help of ABC. Plus, we go over the attendance numbers for our main man, Mike Mitchell. Got all the information, so the TV ratings are in for Week 6 of the XFL season. After 4 weeks of games airing exclusively on cable television, the XFL featured 2 games on ABC for the first time since the season's opening weekend. The XFL never encountered a Week 6 or March Madness 6 years ago. That's a great thing, huh? That's a good thing. Let's see how the 4 games did. So Saturday afternoon's game between the Orlando Guardians and Seattle Sea Dragons averaged 1,047,000 viewers, the league's highest rating since Week 1. The game was originally scheduled for ESPN, but was bumped to ABC a few weeks back, which is a good thing. Notably, the XFL telecast averaged a higher rating and more viewers than ABC's Saturday night NHL game, which had 922,000 viewers. Also drew nearly 4 times the audience of the MLS Saturday afternoon game on Fox, who is, their competitor, but not really. Saturday evening's XFL telecast, I'm joking, at 7 p.m. on FX, featuring the St. Louis Battlehawks Vegas Vipers. 371,000 viewers. The game was rated 21st out of 150 cable TV shows. The XFL has been the second highest rated program on FX since February. That is a good sign. Sunday's game on ABC of the Arlington Renegades versus San Antonio Brahmas on ABC. 753,000 viewers. The telecast faced stiff competition nationally and locally in Texas. The Longhorns playing directly against the game in the NCAA tournament. There were 6 UFL games on broadcast network television, Fox and NBC, that averaged fewer viewers than Sunday's XFL games. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. The final game, this to me was a little disappointing, but the final game, Week 6 of the XFL, the big game, the one that I was at, and if you were watching the game, you would have seen me on television. Yay me. The DC Defenders, it was when Max Borghi got the touchdown, and then you could see me on the sidelines there in my seats. DC Defenders, Houston Roughnecks, showing an average of 371,000 viewers. The game was ranked 52nd out of the top 150 cable TV shows. These are the 2 premier teams, the 2 top teams, DC Defenders, Undefeated, Beer Snake Central, talking about the, Audi Field. Thought it would be a bigger one there. But so, Week 6 TV ratings resulted for the XFL on ABC didn't match up to the numbers they produced in Week 1, 1.6 million average. The dip in viewership from Week 1 sample viewership is to be expected. However, the viewership numbers the XFL produced in Week 6 can only be seen as extremely positive. This is what he's saying. Context is important in this discussion, and it's been lacking in incredible media coverage. Even though poor Mike, every time he posts it, and anytime we post anything that's good news for the XFL, we're conspiracy theorists and propaganda and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, just admit you just want the league to fail. That's all you want. That's all you care about. And then let's move on. He says there is a significant difference in over-the-air network viewership versus cable. We know that media outlets have utilized false equivalency in their reports on the XFL ratings. And that's been the problem. They're like, oh my gosh, the ratings have tanked. Well, yeah, because it's on cable. And this goes for the USFL as well. They willfully ignoring things like multiple games ending at 2 a.m. Eastern, for example, on non-traditional cable sports outlets like FX. Yet they still get good numbers. The dip from the opening weekend also was bound to happen. We all knew this. We said this in the beginning. Look at all of our episodes. But the lack of destination program created by oddly scheduled games on different dates and the multi-week gap between network airings could have hurt the XFL, and it didn't because they still get strong numbers. There is a fan base. They locked into the old fans. It just needs to grow with new ones. Half the battle in finding an audience is having an audience know where to find you. The most avid supporters, the alt football nation, XFL nation, they know where to find the games. But for the casual viewer, the league's minimal promotion and lack of a network presence for several weeks can help further enhance the common out of sight, out of mind approach casual viewers typically have towards these entities. Perhaps more momentum can arrive in the coming weeks with March Madness out of the way. The Final Four does take place this coming Saturday, but you have Major League Baseball coming online. The added playoff importance for XFL games, though, later in the season could help. However, the XFL won't be back on ABC until Week 8. They return to a full slate of cable TV games in Week 7 with a Friday night game on FX and 2 ESPN broadcasts. The league has 4 remaining games on ABC, capping off with the big championship game, Saturday, May 13th in prime time. Ultimately, where the league finishes will be a measure of the XFL's success, although the third iteration in name, ultimately, in many ways, it's an upstart encountering the same problems as first-year sports leagues. But XFL's viewership numbers were a W for Week 6, or a W for the XFL. So this week's TV schedule, Seattle Sea Dragons, Arlington Renegades are Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on FX. San Antonio Brahmas, Vegas Vipers are on Saturday, April 1st at 3 o'clock on ESPN2. DC Defenders, your America's team, at Orlando Guardians. They are Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. That could do some good numbers. And then really a great game, St. Louis Battlehawks, Houston Roughnecks, Sunday the 2nd at 2 p.m. on ESPN2. Also, we have the attendance numbers for you. So for the first game, Seattle Sea Dragons, Orlando Guardians had 7,832. Not great for Orlando. We're trying to get that. I think 12,000 is kind of like a goal. Cashman Field, except for Cashman Field, is 6,033 for the Battlehawks Vipers. I mean, we've had the discussion about the Vegas Vipers stadium situation and being there, etc. Choctaw Stadium, the Brahmas and Renegades, 12,368. I was hoping to see more. Remember, they were doing like 20,000 back in the 2.0 era. And then finally, Houston Roughnecks, DC Defenders, and Monday Night Football. I thought we were kind of thinking maybe in that 15,000 range with 12,492 on ESPN2. And there is your attendance numbers. And we've heard through the grapevine, our sources and stuff like that, that the league is not really, especially the first year, they know they didn't put in a lot of promotion. They know they brought people in within a month before the season was starting because they just wanted to kind of get through the first season, see things are, and then go from there. But, I mean, just being at the games, I saw more corporate sponsorships. I saw more commercials. There's more stuff going on, and as the weeks go on, and then they'll have basically a full year to do all sorts of promotions, season ticket sales, and get people interested. This, from what I was told, and use the term, this was just planting the seed for the first season. So we'll see how things go. So what do you guys think about the ratings? Let us know in the comments. In a surprising move, the Arlington Renegades released quarterback Kyle Sloter. My main man, Anthony Miller, has the story. In a surprising move from the team, the Arlington Renegades released starting quarterback Kyle Sloter from the roster. The league's communication department announced the move Monday night, just the day after the Renegades lost their home game against the San Antonio Brahmas 15-9. We've seen the offense struggle all season long. During the regular season, Sloter started 4 games, going 2-2 as a starter. For the Renegades, he finished with a completion percentage of 60.4%, throwing for 499 yards. Sloter would only get 1 touchdown pass and threw 4 interceptions during that span. He also had 8 rushes for 27 yards. Before the season started, Sloter and Drew Plitt were the 2 quarterbacks announced for the Renegades. They would battle it out with Kevin Anderson for the starting job prior to the first season. Plitt was named the starter in Arlington. We knew when we talked to Jonathan Hayes earlier before the season started that they were very high on Plitt, and so it wasn't a shocker to us that Plitt was the starter, but we all knew Kyle Sloter from the USFL, who I thought was an MVP candidate until he got hurt. And then, so we figured, hey, this will translate, his game will translate well in the XFL and things will be great. He's with a great coach and Bob Stoops, but apparently not. So Plitt would start the first 2 games of the season against the Vipers and Roughnecks. After a 1-1 start, Sloter was named the starter to bring a spark to the offense. Things did not improve for the offense as he was able to go 2-2 in that span. The team is 3-3 in second place in the South, which is good, right? It's safe to assume that Plitt will most likely be the favorite to start at quarterback for the Renegades for at least the next game against the Seattle Sea Dragons Friday night. That should be a good game. That shouldn't mean that Plitt will be the only guy. Stoops already made it known that he's okay with playing 2 quarterbacks if needed. So it could be a sign for Kevin Anderson will get his chance. The team will also need another quarterback added to the roster. Safe assumption would be the team will be calling the other 7 XFL teams to see if who is willing to part with their quarterbacks in a trade. I don't know, Eric Dungy perhaps. Would he be interested in going back to Arlington? I'll just throw that name out there. Guardians have 4 quarterbacks, so they have trade bait. He could part, the Vegas Vipers could part ways with either Brett Hundley or Luis Perez. That's another thing, too. Another direction that the team could go is sign a quarterback off the streets to try to get some game tape for 4 weeks to impress NFL scouts. A fun name that came up that doesn't seem likely is Cam Newton. The only reason Newton's name came up is because Renegades punter Marquette King tagged him in a tweet early Monday that day. Again, this is just kind of fun to bring up. I doubt he'd be there. Now, the Brahmas just did add Kurt Benkert, who was traded to the team from Houston in hopes of getting some NFL, so he could get some NFL reps for the last 4 weeks. So is it possible that Cam Newton would fill in the role for Kyle Sloter? And what's next for Kyle Sloter? He looked good in the USFL, didn't look good in the XFL. Is he going to still be around to potentially get added? I mean, the injuries had happened at quarterback. Was he interested in going on to another team at this point? Or is he making calls to the XFL, the USFL, or even the CFL to get opportunities? It's something we're just going to have to keep an eye on. But we were really surprised. All of us were high on Sloter at the beginning of the season. I am leaning towards the fact that it's the play calling. You saw during the game how frustrated he was with the play calling over at least the last 2 games and didn't hide it. And now he is out. And the offense still hasn't looked that great. So, and our main man, Anthony Mitchell, asked Bob Stoops in the press conference if he's going to make a change at offensive coordinator. He said he's not. So it's just something we'll have to keep an eye on. The XFL Week 6 TV ratings. Anthony Miller has his top Week 6 top offensive, defensive, and special teams players of the week. Let's get right into it. With Week 6 in the books for the XFL, there was a little bit of everything with the offense, defense, and special teams stepping up. The quality of play is starting to show in the bigger moments for the XFL as the league has had 2 ABC games to watch. And we've just the ratings coming out soon. So for the offensive player of the week, really the guy who is probably the MVP right now, A.J. McCarron, St. Louis Battlehawks, 23 of 29, 236 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 carries, and 18 rushing yards. He is the guy there. Definitely some other honorable mentions. Cole McDonald played great in the Houston Roughnecks loss to the D.C. Defenders, 8 of 11. 194 yards, had that big touchdown pass. Jordan Ta'amu, 19 of 31, 245, and 2 touchdowns. Abram Smith, 19 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And Lucky Jackson, 5 catches for 137 yards and a touch. And Darius Shepard, Battlehawks, 7 catches for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, a lot of the MVP talk, you got to talk about Jordan Ta'amu and Abram Smith. Put those names in the mix. Their names need to get in there. Defensive player, Jordan Williams, linebacker, Brahmas. He is one of the top defensive guys in the league. 14 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. He's all over the place. One of the reasons why San Antonio has a decent team. Everyone knew the San Antonio-Arlington game was going to be a battle of defenses and struggling offensive. That vision was a reality when the Brahmas won 15-9 over the Renegades. The 2 biggest reasons for the win were John Parker Romo's Hokie, I believe, went to Virginia Tech, 3 field goals, and the defensive scoop and score in the first half. Who was the recipient of the scoop and score? That would be Jordan Williams, hence why he got that thing. Other honorable mentions, Delonte Scott, linebacker from the Brahmas, 7 tackles, 2 sacks. tackle for a loss. Donald Payne, linebacker, Arlington Renegades, 10 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 interception. Santos Ramirez, DB for the DC Defenders, 3 tackles, half a sack, and a pick 6 for a touchdown. Pitta Tewapunua, linebacker for the Vegas Vipers, 2 tackles, 2 sacks, and a loss. And Levert Hill, a DB for the Battlehawks, 2 tackles, 1 for a loss, and 2 interceptions. Special Teams Player of the Week, Kelvin McKnight, the returner for the Sea Dragons, 3 punt returns, 71 yards, 49-yard long one, 5 kick returns for 133 yards. He did there. Darius Shepard has been the poster child of great returns, but it's really Seattle's Kelvin McKnight. Had a great week this past week. Honorable mentions: Dominic Ellerby, kicker for the Sea Dragons, 4 field goals and with a 54 long. Mac Brown, punter for the Guardians, 5 punts for 241 yards. And Parker Romo, kicker, 3 field goals with a 46 long yard. And then Brad Wigg, the punter for the Brahmas, 7 punts, 346 yards. So there is Anthony Miller's and our XFL News Hub's top players of the offensive, defensive, and special teams for Week 6 in the XFL season. The Arlington Renegades trade for Vegas Vipers Luis Perez. Breaking news today, just one day after the Arlington Renegades released quarterback Kyle Sloter. The team has made a trade with the Vegas Vipers for Luis Perez. The league's communication department announced it Tuesday afternoon. Arlington is sending linebacker Ryan Mueller to the Vipers in exchange for Luis Perez. Is it a surprise? No, I'm kind of surprised, but not, because Perez always gets moved to teams because that, need a solid quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how he does at least he'll be a kind of a veteran presence for Drew Plitt, but I don't see Perez playing much, at least this week or next week. So Perez had been the starter for the Vipers for most of the season, battling with Brett Hundley. Supposedly Hundley is the highest paid player. They mentioned that on ESPN, that he was the high, so clearly he needs to play. This season, Perez is 5th in the XFL in passing yards with 901, 8 touchdowns, 5 picks, 65.3% completion percentage. But many spring football fans know Perez as well, as he is the only quarterback to win a game in the XFL, USFL, the Spring League, the XFL, and the AAF. Quarterback the New Jersey Generals to the playoffs last season, where a lot of us thought the Generals could take the title. Before losing to the Philadelphia Stars in the first round. Perez also participated in training camps with multiple NFL teams, including the Los Angeles Rams. Ryan Mueller was released by the Renegades prior to training camp and was recently resigned to the team due to injuries in the linebacking position. Mueller has not stepped on the field for the Renegades this season. He previously played for the Guardians back in 2020 at linebacker for the team. Currently, Arlington has 2 quarterbacks on the roster: Drew Plitt, Kevin Anderson. Plitt started 2 games for the team and appeared in 3, throwing 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. Anderson has not been active this season, so I'm curious to see where he will be in all of this. Perez brings plenty of experience and success that is needed for the Arlington team, that is second to last in passing yards and last in passing touchdowns. I would love to have seen Cam Newton in here. That was kind of just a little rumor that was out there, but not really a rumor, but we'll see. But that Perez looks to be the guy. Is he the one that's going to get the offense clicking over a guy like Kyle Sloter? That's tough for Luis Perez. But on the Vegas side of things, their reaction is like, who is Ryan Mueller? So Brent Hundley clearly is the guy. Perez, in 5 weeks with the Vipers, is 5th in passing yards, 4th passing TDs, 7th in completions, and 2nd in picks. Played a lot. So the Renegades gave up so they get Ryan Mueller, who hasn't played at all. But he was a New York Guardians where he won Defensive Player of the Year. So he was a guy there in the 2020 XFL. So we'll see if he kind of gets things going. But the real thing is now it is Jalen McClendon is the backup. Brent Hundley is your starting quarterback for the rest of the season, I assume. And we'll see, can the Vegas Vipers turn things around? How is Luis Perez going to do in this last couple weeks in Arlington? It's easy basically where they're located. It's not like he has to travel cross country or anything. He just has to kind of move to a different hotel or something, which is good. Well, we'll see. We always root for Luis Perez. Our football nation loves Luis Perez. So we will see how that works out. If I was Luis Perez, would I be wanting to go to Arlington and deal with that offense? Probably not. But we'll see how things go. Let us know what you think in the comments. Mike Mitchell has his XFL Week 7 power rankings, stacking the league's best to the worst. Let's just get right into it. So 60% of the XFL season is completed. As we race towards the playoff, things start to tighten, postseason positions and all that good stuff. So let's get right into it. Number 1, of course, anybody surprised? The DC Defenders at 6-0, a week after beating the Battlehawks. They delivered another resounding statement in Week 6, defeating the Houston Roughnecks 37-26. DC improves to 6-0 on the season and 7-0 all-time at Audi Field, something to keep in mind at number 1. Now, number 2, St. Louis Battlehawks. They are 4-2 after a huge emotional letdown, losing their revenge game against DC. At home in Week 5, the Battlehawks desperately needed to bounce back away from St. Louis in Week 6, especially with the 4-2 Seattle winning earlier in the day and closing in on them. That's precisely what Beck's crew needed in Vegas, and they did that, vaporizing the Vipers 29-6 on Saturday night. And A.J. McCarron is definitely now, to me, in the forefront as far as MVP talk, based on how Brandon Silvers did this past game against the DC Defenders. Number 3, Seattle Sea Dragons. By hook or crook, Seattle has won 4 straight games to keep their playoffs hope alive. Remember, they should have beaten DC in DC, but a fumble and some turnovers kind of cost them the game, but they took the win. They beat the Guardians. We are who they thought they were, 26-19. So the Dragons had to win on Saturday against the winless Guardians, which was a can't-lose scenario, and despite nearly burning themselves in Orlando heat because it was so loud, Seattle found a way to avoid disaster, and they wound up winning the game there. Number 4, Houston Roughnecks, after losing to DC Defenders, and basically in a 2-game losing streak, they have dropped down to number 4. The Defenders outcoached and outplayed Houston and dealt them with a 37-26 defeat on Monday night. So they dropped down to number 4. We'll see how they kind of get out of this funk, but they have some big games coming up too. At number 5, the 3-3 Arlington Renegades. It's tempting to slot Arlington lower than 5th in the rankings after another pitiful performance offensively and their 15-9 loss to San Antonio. The Renegades have been competitive in every game they played, but based on how things are going, they won't be at 5 for long. Arlington had an opportunity to slam the door shut on San Antonio's playoff chances, and by doing so, would practically ensure their own postseason spot. Instead, the Renegades opened the door for their own exit in the playoffs. And again, Arlington has a top-tier defense, but they've been held back by their offense. John Hayes, which we love, unit produced a lousy 9 points Sunday at home. The fact that the Renegades were fortunate to score 9, they would have not had for 2 turnovers on defense and 1 absurd touchdown grab by Luwan Whittingham. Do you remember this catch?
Pressure coming. Will lets it go in zone. Wow! What an unbelievable grab by Luwan Whittingham! And he launched it into the stands.
That was an incredible play there. Now on to number 6, the San Antonio Brahmas at 2-4. Salvaged their season on Sunday, besting the Renegades with another low-scoring slugfest, but they got Ben Kirk. They lost Reed Sinnott for the season, then lost Jack Cohen, which whatever. Then they lost Kalen Ballage to injury during practice on Thursday. Then the team got Ben Kirk last week, paired him up, got him ready in 2 days. Juwan Pass played on Sunday. A less than ideal situation, but hey, Ben Kirk could be a guy down the stretch. Brahmas are in this, and I think it was good for the Brahmas and good for the league to have San Antonio win that game to kind of keep them in the mix, especially when they have a big fan base, and that will help drive ticket sales, hopefully. Vegas Vipers at 1-5. It lived up to the legendary Bill Parcells belief system that says you are what your record says you are, close quote. Las Vegas has become Las Vegas in a season that has become a lost one. After weeks of losing close games, they finally breaking through with an exciting 35-34 32 victory in Week 5. The Vegas Vipers fell hard in Week 6, getting thoroughly outclassed at home by the Battlehawks 29-6. Again, I love, a lot of complaining about the refs, but your team is 1-5. Focus on that and not quit worrying about the refs. Finally, at number 8, we are who they thought they were. Orlando Guardians, 0-6, but man, they are still fighting. Both teams, Vegas and Guardians, are still fighting. Remember, these players are playing for a chance to make it back to the NFL and get NFL looks. So if they just take it off because their team isn't playing well, that doesn't bode well for them. So they're still trying. I think Orlando could win one game this year. I really think they're getting close. Devin Darrington had a big play in the game. Let's take a look.
Third down handoff, Darrington picks up a first down, and a lot more. There he goes. Darrington to the house.
So they had a big play there, but again, they are who we thought they were. So there are your recap. It's definitely a lot different in the beginning of the season, but there's things that we've got to keep an eye on. How's Houston going to do? What St. Louis is going to do? Now we are done with Week 6, and now we're basically past that halfway point, and now we're heading to the playoffs. And it's up for grabs. I mean, for Seattle, for St. Louis, Houston is definitely will win that division. Arlington and even the San Antonio Brahmas. So it will be for an intriguing closing of the season.
What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today.
Oh, we are back, my friends. What is up? Lots of stuff to get to. Hey, gave you so much stuff. You have to take a second, smash that like button. Don't be a jabron. Smash the like button. Let's get this sucker to 100 likes. Big, huge episode, almost 2 hours long, chock full of information, trades and cuts and behind the scenes interviews and the game scores and press conferences. We've given you everything here at XFL News Hub. And all we ask is that you subscribe, and like the channel. That's it. That's all you need to do. What's up to everybody in the chat? Don checking in. Cacaw, everyone. Ty says, defend DC. It was a great game. Yes, it was. Andy says, yes, I saw you on TV. You did, Andy. You did see me on TV. We actually have the tweet. We actually have the evidence of the tweet. Courtesy, let's see here if this works. Courtesy of our friends at XFan Show. A reminder, you can watch the XFan Show 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's XFan Show. Just look them up on YouTube. But yes, here's your boy. They sent a screenshot. I got a bunch of messages from people. Don messaged me. Let's see. There was other people that messaged me. But yeah, that was me after the Max Borghi touchdown with our two buddies who actually, they sit behind us, two brothers, really good guys, always have great conversations. My wife was right next to me as they were filming it, and she started to stand up. Why they wouldn't want to have a pretty blonde on television is beyond me. I don't know why they took us three dudes, but she was right next to me. She was getting up, and they didn't get her, and so yeah, there you have it. So it was funny, but it was funny. You know, you don't think anybody watches what we do or does what we do, but then you know, got a lot of messages out there saying, "Hey, man, I saw you on TV." Let's see here. First, Dave sent this in. He says, "Hey, Mr. Perry, I saw you on TV last night in the crowd of DC versus Houston. It's the fourth quarter. DC is your team, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. I'm a season ticket holder. Got a good one this season." Yeah, I mean, we picked a good team. You know, I always get criticized sometimes because I'm like, well, you know, why are you such a DC Defenders guy? You know, it's because I can go to the games, I can touch it, I can taste it. My wife is giving a cup to the beer snake every time. Well, this time she didn't though, but she usually does. Passes along her beer can or cups to the beer snake, and it's just such a fun crowd, man. Even last night, we're so used to it, but brought some friends for the first time, and they had a blast. It's just there's an energy to the building that it's just so much fun. And I hope to do the same thing, not only when we go to Orlando, we'll be there, in Orlando to go see a game. And I definitely want to see, what the vibe is there. So definitely message me podcast at XFL News Hub and let me know what's a good spot to hang out before the game and then show up at the game and say hello. So but yeah, I appreciate Dave checking in. He said, keep up the good work with XFL News Hub. I'm a regular listener of your XFL podcast since 2020. Keep that in mind out there. We've been around a long time, 192 episodes. So appreciate that. And then Don actually had the number. He says, could call my friend, you probably know, broadcast 10:03 left in the fourth quarter. So if you go to ESPN Plus, you can go shift to 10:03 left in the fourth quarter. I'm going to do that after I get off here. And definitely check that out with my wife. So I appreciate that. It was fun times. Russ says, go Battlehawks. Chris says, Defenders prove 80s football is superior. Hey, remember Rod Woodson kind of poo-pooing the DC Defenders offense, how basic it is and it's not this or whatever. 6-0, Rod. I love you, Rod. 6-0. Quit worrying about the refs, Rod, and just focus on your team. Just focus on your team. Greg Crawford says the DC team is obvious class of the XFL. Hey, they could go on a 3-game losing streak, and that could be it. So we have to see. B. Lewis says, see you on TV at the game last night. LOL, yes. Chris said, love the passing game more, but RB, Abram Smith, is exciting to watch. You know something big is going to and might happen. And that catch was a masterpiece. We showed that. Yeah, that was – we've had some great catches in the XFL this year. And yeah, Tamu started passing it. We started throwing it a little bit more. So it was, well, not we, them. We started throwing it more. So it was a great game. All right, let's get to a phone call.
Hey, I just wanted to say the XFL is doing a great job. The Rock and his ex-wife is doing a wonderful job with the show, with their XFL stuff that's going on. Hey, I'm trying to reach somebody in the XFL office. My name is Michael King, K-I-N-G. I'm in a sports agent company based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I have a former Green Bay Packer, Gilbert Brown, the grave digger, looking to talk to somebody about getting a coaching job in the XFL. Can you call me back at 414?
Oh, okay. Don't want to give out your phone number there, guy. But people send me messages all the time. He started the phone call with everything was normal. Then went into that. Yeah. Again, we're not the XFL. I'm not the XFL, so don't call me. And tell and people know people. And if your guy's got in a game, you know what I mean. It's a small network of people. If you want to get your name out there, so I'll just leave it at that. It's funny because I listened to a lot of the phone calls in the beginning, and then I didn't know that was coming. All right, next phone caller.
Hey, Mark, this is James. I've been calling in for the past couple of weeks. Thank you so much for the podcast, as always. Random question that just popped into my head because I have never been to an XFL game because there's none in my area. So I was just wondering, do they have, halftime entertainment? What is the situation when football is not being played? Do they have, kiss cam type stuff? Do they got like what is the situation since you've been to a couple DC Defenders games? And what do you think about them adding some entertainment elements after, like, when the football isn't being played in the commercial break? Anyways, let me know what the situation is like and how you feel about the on-field activities when the games aren't being played, when they're in TV timeout or whatever.
All right. Appreciate the call, James. Always checking in. Appreciate him. I will tell you, so it's really interesting. So the first game, there wasn't really much. Last night's game, we had a local high school band, marching band. They kind of played in the beginning, and then they came out at halftime and did their thing, which was cool. They do, they have, like, fans come on the field, and they throw T-shirts in there, which everybody likes. And I've noticed that this week, and I was mentioning it to my wife, was that they did more, like, commercials for stuff that was made. Like, it just seems like each week is like more stuff is being added. There was more like merch areas. There's different vendors. They had the Terramana tequila thing bus that was outside. We didn't go to that. We figured it would probably be inside, but it wasn't. They have the Zoa drink set up. They have a lot of, like each game like adds more and more to the experience. But then, in between plays, they're always like hyping the crowd. I don't know what was going on in Vegas. Having a DJ playing while like the football game is going on the field was just terrible. That's just dumb. Like, come on. It was already like I could already hear the crowd in Vegas and all that other stuff. It was unnecessary. And that person, so apparently Gavin from XFL News Hub, he said he was sitting near the guy or person that was doing that, and it was annoying him too. So but I was like, that was so, like, how was that picked up? It was driving me nuts. I don't know. I've been diagnosed as an adult with ADHD. That's why sometimes you kind of hear me like rambling or incoherent at times, or I'm not making sense. It's because my brain is like running 100 miles an hour, especially if I'm tired. But that was just driving me nuts. And I'm an audio guy. Like, I do like audio at church, and I also play drums at church too. And but I'm a very audio person. Like, with the sound is good, sound is bad. Like, I go to concerts. I was at the Toto Journey concert in DC. I thought Toto was mixed excellent. Journey, there was something missing with it, and it had to do with because the singer was also, the drummer was also singing. And so that kind of messed things up. Maybe that's why the sound wasn't great. Like, it was just, I don't know. So it was just driving me nuts, man. It was driving me nuts. But I'll tell you, there's a lot more stuff going on compared to the first week. They had kids on the field at one time. They had military people trying to kick field goals. That was fun at one time. So they're bringing more and more stuff into these games. And also, you're in and out in 3 hours. I mean, we were walking to our car. I checked my watch. I think it was like 9:50 or something, and the game started at 7. So it moves quick. You're in and out in 3 hours. It's not an all-day thing like baseball, where it's like, oh my gosh, it's a 5-hour baseball game because pitchers got to sit there, do all this kind of wacky stuff. Just throw the dang ball, bro. Just throw the ball. Like, why? What is your problem? Just throw the ball. So yeah, but it's been a lot of fun. Ty says, wonder what the Brahmas do at QB. I like Juwan Pass, but obviously Ben Kirk is more powerful name, or maybe Cohen comes back and gets the job. It was interesting in the what Hines Ward had said about Juwan Pass, and I think other teams are probably going to do the same. A guy with a lot of raw talent, but just needs to be coached up. So Juwan Pass is like a project for them for the next couple of years. And I am sure on some of these rosters, they have players, especially maybe at the QB position too, that teams will look at. It's like, hey, if you're the third string on the team right now, don't give up. I mean, remember, Taylor Heineke didn't play a snap, I don't think, in the XFL. But clearly, year two, you might get a shot at it. Like, being on these rosters for more than a year could prove to be beneficial for these. Don says Tamu is improving every week. You must remember that he joined the league later than the other QBs. This is true. Let's see here. Russ says, don't mess with the beer snake. 100%. I love it. It makes me chuckle every time so DC, we've got the beer snake. We've got Dan Snyder. That comes out. Feed the Snake comes out. What's some other? Chug was that was happening in our section. The Lemons, they still make, a couple appearances here with the Lemons. And people are bringing lemon hats and lemon signs. So it's just fun atmosphere. And I hope, and if you're a fan and you want these things, like, you are in control of these teams and your local markets, and you can start fun traditions too. One that I've noticed over the past 2 games is the "You Can't Do That" chant. And that's something that the high school kids do, but they were chanting "You Can." And I'm sure it happens. I don't remember that happening at NFL games ever, but at the DC Defenders games, "You Can't Do That." And there was a lot of "Houston Sucks." I'm just saying that too. And that was pissing the DC Defenders players were going like this as the fans were chanting "Houston Sucks." So it was just a lot of fun. Mr. Pete Channel says, put the nicknames back on the jerseys. No, I'm not down with that. Andy says 2 spring leagues is uncharted territory. Absolutely, it is uncharted territory. Let's see. Isaiah says, wow, awesome stuff, Mark. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Don says, Mark's presence was the cause for the low TV rating. Don, no, that is not true. Ratings went up when they showed me on television. The ratings were down. They showed me, and then the ratings went up. If they would have shown my wife, they really would have went up even more. Just going to want to point that out. All right, let's take another phone call.
Hey, Mark. This is Yusuf, Orlando Guardians and Tampa Bay Vipers fan. Hey, I was giving you a call, leaving a voicemail. I've been missing the show every now and then just from my work schedule, but I've been tuning in when I can, missing it live, I should say. But I just want to let you know that as far as the Guardians, I'm a season ticket holder, and finally it looks like they may have gotten their quarterback with Dormady. I don't know why Coach Buckley kept switching, putting Paxton Lynch in there. I mean, I've watched him all 5 games, and this guy is not getting it done, and he's not that good. Just holds on to the ball. It seems like he can only, too long, only can throw the deep ball, can't throw the intermediate or short routes. I know the offensive line is not that great, but Dormady, even though the offensive line wasn't that great, played better. And even, Flowers, and I've seen Francois in moments, play better, even with the offensive line being questionable. So I know the season's pretty much over as far as playoffs with us. Hopefully we can at least be respectable when, I don't know, maybe 4-6. I know it's doubtful to win 5 straight, maybe 4-6 or 3-7 or something. And, hopefully Coach Buckley will learn from his mistakes that you got to stick with one quarterback. And but there are some good players out there. It's just they, unfortunately, in the offensive line and some of the coaching decisions have hurt them. So and the quarterback play. But Paxton Lynch, I think I'm not sure why a lot of these analysts are thinking he's good. I've watched him personally on the first 2 home games in every game, and he's not impressive at all. Hope I didn't go over. Thanks, Mark. Hopefully, maybe I'll see you one day when you go to Orlando. I'll meet you at a game. All
right. Hey, I appreciate the phone call. I will be there. Dormady is the guy. There's no question. Paxton Lynch, he started to play a little bit better. And then they went to Dormady, and Dormady just looks better. And so, yeah, I think Paxton Lynch has his run. He tried it in the USFL. We maybe thought it was something with, the offensive coordinator or whatever. Maybe he gets mixed around later on a different team. But I think Dormady is the guy. If you didn't hear, basically he's friends with Reed Sinnett and told him that he wasn't going to play that week, and that was basically it. And that's what caused all this kind of craziness to happen. I think Terrell Buckley is starting to get it together. I will say this, based on the way everything is going, it would not surprise. So I am going to the April 8th game. That could be the one at home that the Orlando Guardians could win. I think they could beat the Arlington Renegades the way they're playing. And I would love if their one game was at the game that we were at. I think that would be fantastic. So I'm hoping they don't win this week, and I'm going in because I want to also point out that the DC Defenders have never lost at Audi Field, going back even to 2020. And I've been at every single DC Defenders game. So I want me and my wife and my crew going to Orlando to see the Guardians take on the Renegades, and the Guardians win their only game there. I want that. I think it could happen. I think the Renegades just have no offense. I think the Orlando Guardians have an offense. They've got some defensive players. I think they could do well. We'll just have to see how that turns out. All right, let's see. Mr. Pete Channel has reached the big time. San Diego Venom, maybe. Mike has said, hey, from Winnipeg. I caught some XFL this weekend. Love the game. Hey, I think the Blue Bombers probably looking good again. Just definitely check us out on CFL News Hub. As football loves, it's unfortunate that we have to pick a game. Can't they alternate days? Let's see. I'm very excited to see what Right to Censor Val says. I'm excited to see what Luis Perez can do in the DFW. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Luis, the way that offense is going. Salvador says, went to the Battlehawks at Defenders game at Audi Field. They like to randomly zoom into fans a lot. They also did the flex cam. That was true, Salvador. I was there too. Yes, they did do that a couple times. Some of it was funny. But my wife had pointed out that they mostly always do shots of the red seats. In the red seats, there's that's not because they're the expensive seats, but the seats on the other side, they don't do as much, she had said. All right, final phone call, and then we'll wrap this show up.
Hey, Mark, this is James again. I'll try to keep this one short and concise here. I just wanted to chat a little bit about the XFL TV ratings because I've been seeing a lot of chatter. And I know, people are going to talk on social media, the ratings are low, blah, blah, blah. Okay, first off, I don't know anybody, especially in my age group, too. I'm a young professional, so I'm around, like, college age. I don't know anybody in my age group with cable. I don't know anybody in my age group that sits down in front of a TV and watches TV. You know what they do? They go on Hulu. They go on Netflix. They go on ESPN+. I know a ton of people watching the league on ESPN+. So whenever I see these ratings, I'm just like, these aren't real because they're not showing the streaming numbers. What are your thoughts? Thanks, Mark.
All right. Hey, that's a great question. And I agree with you. It's just a lot easier to watch the game on ESPN Plus and it's just a weird thing. And maybe that's part of the reason why that they have this in their pocket, that they're very excited. But none of the streaming services ever put the numbers out there of what the streaming numbers are. So I would be, you would think if they were good, they would be like, 500,000 people streamed the DC Defenders game last week or last night or something. But yeah, but especially with the DC Defenders game, it's got a great mix of like young, kind of like your demographic, which is really needed in football. And DC has it, so it's a great, like Russ is saying in the chat room, I watch all the games on ESPN Plus. So a lot of people do too. But, Mike said in the article, there is media people that will criticize this stuff, and they fully know well some of these data points too. And my wife and I were talking about it too, and just the viewing habits are completely different now than they were pre-COVID and all that fun stuff. So I appreciate the phone calls, appreciate everybody from checking in. Make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We're probably going to do some contests coming up here soon. To get some people to subscribe and hang out with. That would be fun. So remember, if you want to be part of the show, Email podcast at XFL News Hub with your thoughts. Record an MP3 on, it all deal. 888-430-7692, extension 3. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we are live every Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We will be there again this week. And also, we're excited about to be at the Orlando Guardians game against the Renegades April 8th. And then we will see you all in San Antonio. You get your tickets. Did you see the Hub survey that came out? So that's where they were asking what do you want to see in this championship game? I will say to my brothers and sisters in St. Louis, this is not a slight on you. We are already going to be in Orlando for vacation. We're just leaving early and we're driving. So that was kind of the thing. We were already going to be in Disney World, we're being in Disney World for a couple days. And then we checked this calendar, and we're like, oh, the Guardians are going to be playing at home on April 8th. So let's just go to the game early. So we're going to leave. We're going to drive overnight Friday, get into town on Saturday really early in the morning, take a nap, grab a Zoa, and then head out to Orlando to hang out and watch the game, and then come back and relax, and then we'll have a vacation. But it's not really a vacation for me because that's the week that we've got the XFL coming down to the end. The USFL is kicking off that week. So I will try to hang out and enjoy my time at Disney World. But that's just that's why we're doing it. So no offense to the Cacaw Nation. Would love to have gone, just could not swing it. But next year, maybe we'll see you in D.C. for a little playoff game, which also is we're trying to mix up. There's other so that playoff weekend, one of my daughters is graduating from college, but she's graduating on a Sunday, not a Saturday. The DC Defenders, if they make the playoffs and have a home game, is that game going to be on Saturday? Do we go to the game and as soon as the game is over, drive the car to, Reagan National Airport and fly out to Florida? I don't know. So we're just trying to figure all this stuff out. But it's been a lot of fun, and it was great to spend time with my wife to watch the games too. And she's enjoying it and has a good time. And she's got her 2 blankets. She's got the DC Defenders red blanket and the XFL blanket. So if it's cold in your area, which I don't think we'll have a problem in Orlando when we go down there, get yourself a little XFL blanket. And we noticed new merch too. There was some more merch that I haven't seen before. That's how much nerds we are at XFL News Hub. We will notice the littlest thing that these people say in interviews, or we'll notice there's different merch. I mean, we look at, job postings, all sorts of stuff here at XFL News Hub. So I appreciate you guys coming in on a Tuesday to come hang out in the super long episode. Also like to thank Thomas Schad from USA Today to hop on real quick and kind of talk about his interview as well. So that is it for me, folks. Thanks for listening. Mahalo as always. God bless, and I will see you on Thursday. I will see you all later on Thursday. God bless.